Hello, everyone. I have a very intriguing guest today, and we're going to be talking about children, communication, communication in every aspect of our lives, and how words create an impact on how people respond, how they feel, how they grow, how they learn. My guest is Amy Hughes. She is the author of a book called Words Like Honey. I just love that title. So I reached out because I wanted to interview her. Anybody who writes a book with that title, I just kind of like the vibe right off the bat. So welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I am happy to be here. Now, a lot of your book focuses on how we communicate with children. Now, clearly, nobody wants to screw up their children. You know, we get handed these little people, day one, they have no instruction manuals. You could have 2, 3, 4 with the same two people, and every single one pops out differently. So, how can we start to better communicate with them?
Yeah, it's so funny because I am not a good communicator. And I often write for myself. I write the
Mhm,
things that I need to remember.
mhm,
And my words, my tone, all the things I'm using with my children, those are the things I need to remember.
mhm.
Because as I grew up and started having kids, I realized I don't think the way I communicate is the best way to communicate. I was quick to uh, I was quick to cut people off.
Mhm.
I would always, I guess I'm a writer, so I have an imagination, and so I would always imagine. I knew what they were going to say, so they didn't need to finish their sentences. I was not a great active listener. I was not very cognizant of my tone or the way I was
Mhm.
talking. And so I didn't start out communicating perfectly. And
Mhm.
it was something I really had to learn that our kids, um, they take in our words and our phrases at their own developmental
Mhm.
place. And that's not the place we're in. We're in a different spot. So we need to really think about what we're saying and how they're taking in what we're saying.
Was there a catalyst that made you aware of this within yourself and your observations, or were you observing other people and thinking, "Well, I do that too, and I don't like it."
Yeah, it was definitely a combination of things. As a new mom, well, I got married really young. I got married like a couple months after I turned 19, and
Mhm,
I already had a built-in son because my husband had a kid when he was 15 and the biological mom left. So he had this son. And I became his mom when I was 19 years old. And then I found out a couple months later I was pregnant. So I I was very young. And so it was all really new to me. But I was in these spaces with moms, and but also having just come out of being a kid myself. And so I
mhm,
was listening to people talking to their kids, and I was like, I don't like that. Like that doesn't sound right to me. And so I kind of always had this thought in the back of my head that something about our language and the way we communicate with children isn't it's not connecting. It's not
mhm.
as it should be. And so, but it took me time because I also wanted to prove myself. So, I said the same things because this is what the moms were saying. This is what
Mhm.
I had heard as a kid and what everybody else was saying. So, um, I just kept, I kept following suit, even though something just wasn't sitting right within me.
Mhm.
And so it just kind of, it was just kind of like there was like a catalyst. It kind of just built up and built up. And then what ended up really cementing this for me, and I tell this story in the book, was when my oldest daughter was 13. We were sitting there, and I homeschool, And so I was reading, we were reading Robin Hood and talking to the kids about, different ideas within that book. And I posed the question, is it ever okay to steal?
Good
And so the
question.
kids, yeah. And so the kids,
Good
started
question,
talking about
especially
it.
considering that book.
Right.
Wow.
Well, my daughter, 13 years old, says to me, well, Dad did steal that cream that one time. And I was like, what? And like, you have to understand, my husband is like, he is the most honest person out there. If he accidentally leaves the store with something that was like, miss or hiding in the cart, he will go back in and pay it. So I was so confused what she was talking about. And I'm like, what do you mean, Layla? And she says, well, back when we lived in Washington. And so she's talking about when she was like 5, 6 years old. That's how old she was when we were there. She says, you guys went to the store and grandma was babysitting us. And when you got back, Dad gave her the cream. It's like a wart cream or something. And he gave her the cream and she goes, oh, where'd you find it? And Dad said, I stole it. And my husband, he's very humorous. Everything, he's just, he's just a jokester. And so he said this, flippant joke to his mom. I stole it. And that was it. But Layla, 6 years old,
was literal.
Took that in. She thought, oh, my dad stole the cream.
Wow.
So in her mind, and this is 7 years later, we're talking about it. She's gone all this time thinking there was a reason that my dad felt it was okay to steal something. And so that was huge. I was just like, oh my goodness, how do kids understand our language? We think we are saying something to them, but they're not always taking it in the same way. They're not always understanding, especially depending on their stage of development. And so that was really the biggest thing that made me go, I really need to pay attention and be intentional about my words, about the things I'm saying, about how I say it, because we raise these kids and we say stuff to them that we don't understand how they are understanding these things. And so a lot of times, like if we hadn't had this conversation, my daughter, she's 23 now, like she would still think her dad stole that cream. And so how many things do we, say to our kids that they go through their entire, childhood or even life thinking that wasn't at all what we meant or what we wanted to say or what really happened or, whatever. So that was the big thing that made me realize, okay, I really need to get my words, my language, the messages I'm sending under control here.
It's so funny you say that because I remember one time driving in the car with our daughter and she says to me, or she just says, what an idiot. I'm like, what an idiot. And I had just braked and I said, what does that mean? And she goes, Dad told me it's a bad woman driver. So how kids repeat stuff, but not idiot. No, she heard idiot. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad she heard idiot. Let's leave it at that.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
But it's very interesting because kids are little sponges. They're mimics. They're picking up on everything. They're counting on us to interpret the world and interpret, how they're seeing and hearing things.
Yeah.
And we're busy adults. I always try to give adults a little slack in that. Okay, you're really busy. Kids have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
But those interactions, those quality moments can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. They really do.
What's a honey word and what's a stinging word?
Yeah. So in the book, I give a lot of phrases that are really simple phrases, things that that don't seem like that big a deal, right? But that children, especially depending on their developmental stage, could very well take in a negative way. And so some of those phrases are things like, don't be sad, calm down, even hurry up, which can seem so silly to some people, but it actually makes a huge impact on a child. What's wrong with you? We often say that in a way of just saying, actually asking, what's wrong with you? I want to comfort you. I want to be there. But the child is actually hearing there's something wrong with them. And then they start thinking, what is wrong with me? And they carry on that message. And so there are these little simple things that really do sting, that really do hurt a little bit. And if they're said regularly, or something that the child is consistently hearing through childhood, it can really be hard on them. And like in my example, when they imagine, or when they think that these things mean something that we don't want them to mean to them, but we don't know that it means that to them, they carry that message on with them throughout their childhood and life. And so really my heart is to get people to think, am I saying this the right way? Is this really the message that I want to send to my kids? And then, if not, what can I say instead? Don't be sad, instead of don't be sad, which is so sweet, because we're trying to comfort our kids. We're like, oh, don't be sad. It's okay. But our kids are hearing, it's not okay to be sad. I shouldn't be sad. And so we can offer that comfort without a phrase that might impact them negatively, by saying something like, oh, I'm right here. I know this is hard. I know you're sad. I get sad too sometimes, let me know what I can do for you. Let me know, just transitioning that language just a little bit to send that same exact message, but to send it in a way that isn't kind of combating with their neurodevelopment and what they can understand at that time.
That's a great example. And you mentioned the phrase calm down before. Well, I don't know too many parents that haven't said calm down in a very high-pitched, elevated voice. It's like, calm down.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, calm down. No, it's calm down.
Yeah, it is. I know. I tell a story about when I'm in the Walmart bathroom with one of my I had twin 3-year-olds, and one of them was just freaking out, screaming and yelling. And, I'm sitting there I don't want to leave the bathroom with her like this. So I'm in this stall, and the lady next to us is like, shut that kid up. And I'm just like yelling and like whispering in her ear, calm down, calm down, calm down,
Right.
just like, it's just this, and every time I said it, she just got more and more upset, louder and louder and louder, until, I eventually just had to run out of there with her screaming. And it's
we've all been there if we've been
right. I know we have.
Parents
And I'm
been
like,
there.
we all have been there. And I'm just like, to the lady in the stall next to me, like, haven't you been there? Like, why?
No, she hasn't been, if she was saying that.
I know.
Anybody who's been there would be looking in their purse trying to find, what can I pass this kid to calm them down?
Exactly. I know.
I used to buy cheap mirrors at the dollar store, and I would keep them in my purse, especially if I was going to some event at a church or something. And so, if I knew I was going to a christening and there'd be little kids there, because I could always pull out the mirror and hand it to the little kid that was getting.
That's great.
And then they're looking at themselves and they're happy. It's a totally different.
My goodness. That's a great idea. I love that. Well, we'll often, I play the distraction game now. Instead of calm down, it's, especially with a really young child, it's, oftentimes it's color, like, oh, where's that red thing? I cannot find that red thing. And then it distracts them enough to start looking, where is that red thing? And they start looking around, and, there are definite tools we can use, but a lot of times it's just our words, calm down. And that just works against us.
Now, do you think you mentioned, a child where you can say, look at that red thing.
Mhm.
What, how do you think the language has to transition with the age of the child as far as our words go?
Yeah, so I do think that with the younger children, a lot of times um, it is really just about clarity. Like for example, hurry up, instead of telling a young child hurry up, which oftentimes will put them into fight, flight, or freeze mode
Mhm.
and really does work against us. We can just we distract with quick things like play, and let's race and see who can get to the car first instead of hurry up. So a lot of times with younger kids, it's just a clear goal and some sort of play or reward, something that
Mhm.
they're going to understand and have buy-in with, oh yeah, I want
Mhm.
to race or yeah, I want to get home and see dad because he's home from work now. Whatever the case may be, it's play or reward really works well at those younger ages. And then as your kids get older is giving context.
Mm.
It's really just believing that your children can actually understand, like a human
Right.
being can understand simple things like, hey, we really do need to get home because it's time to make dinner, and and dad's going to be home from work, and
Mhm.
I'd love it if you'd help me cook if you want,
Mhm.
just giving more context instead of hurry up. So for younger kids, it really is, I think, less words and more play, more reward, just
Play and
more.
game. Mhm.
Yeah. And then for older kids, it's just more context instead of I'm I'm telling you what we have to do and you just have to
Mhm.
jump to it and do it. It's come on, let's work together. We're a team. Let's do
Mhm.
this, and this is why. And I know a lot of parenting suggests not giving context, but as our kids are getting older, they have brains and they're human
Mhm.
beings, and they just want to know that their thoughts and their voice matters. And so instead of just pulling them along and barking these commands at them, we can kind of just bring them alongside us with
Mhm.
context, with understanding, with connection. And I think that makes a lot of difference.
Why would someone resist that as a concept?
I think that there's really an underlying idea in parenting that I'm the parent, I'm the authority, my child is under me, and if I don't put my foot down and teach them that they have to obey me and live under my command, then they're going
Mhm.
to grow up to be disrespectful, entitled, terrible members of society. And it's fear based. I think it's
Mhm.
really based on fear. People are afraid of what's going to happen to their children if they don't have this strong arm with their
Mhm.
children when they're younger. um, and so I think I do see that. I feel like a lot of parenting is kind of starting to break out of that, which is wonderful,
Mhm.
but it's still very, very prevalent. And I mean, all you have to do is look at the comments on any social media post to see, parents are like, what that kid needs is a good whatever, and
What?
yeah,
That's
and
what we
it's
grew up with.
yeah, yeah. And so that idea, it really is so prevalent. And actually, I have my husband in my book talk a little bit to dads, because I think that is really a big thing with the father, that they feel like, I want my kid to respect me, I want that, I need that place of authority. It's this
Mhm.
this thing they feel. Um and I know that I'm not necessarily the one to talk to the dad, so I had my husband offer a little advice and some thoughts there. But it is a mindset that I think is fear based, that
Mhm.
is really hard for a lot of parents to break out of, just because they're afraid of the other side.
Do you think there's a point where are you saying you encourage rationalizing with the child, or is there a point where that rationalization has to be, no, the adult has to be the adult?
Of course, there's times the adult needs to be
Mhm.
the adult, for sure.
Mhm.
In our house, it's more like um, what we kind of say is, So my dad was a lawyer, so he kind of taught us to argue, but to argue
Mhm.
well, to argue
Oh.
with respect and with kindness. And so that's kind of a concept that we've taken is we may say something that this needs to be done, and you are more than welcome to push back on that a little. Is
Mhm.
it does it need to be done right now, or is there someone else that can do it, or I don't think that needs to be done because of this. So you're more than welcome, I'm talking to my kids,
Uh-huh.
to push back, to ask questions,
Mhm.
to ask why. That's totally
Mhm.
fine. um but in the end, sometimes we just have to say, I understand your thoughts on the matter, but this is what we need right now. And so we're going to have to do it. And so there's
Mhm.
definite, like, overall, we are going to say and do what we need to.
Mhm.
And sometimes it just goes against what the kid wants, but
Right.
we allow for our kids to share their opinion, to ask their questions, to present another way. We love present another way because sometimes our kids have the best ideas, that we wouldn't have
That's a
thought of.
great phrase, present another way. This has
Yeah,
to get done, present
yeah,
another way.
absolutely. And so
What
we
a
allow for
that's
those
the
things.
soundbite.
Yeah, we allow for those things. As long as they're done, with kindness and respect for one another. Not just, you have to respect me as your parent, but we're going to respect each other. We're going to hear each other's thoughts and opinions, and we're going to speak with respect and communication, good communication. And in the end, though, whatever mom or dad decides, that's going to have to be what the answer is.
Uh-huh, that's really good. I love that concept of present another
Mhm.
way
Yeah.
because it's engaging, and at any age, a little kid, wants to self it. They're the first
Mhm.
one to say when they start to become more independent, "No, no, no, I want to self it kind of thing. Let me do it myself." And a
Yeah.
teenager certainly doesn't want to be told what to do. So, okay,
Yeah.
you can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. So,
Right.
tell
That's
me a better way we
exactly.
can do this, but it's got to get
Exactly.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, great concept. Um, respect. Respect is being challenged in all aspects of society. How can words like honey improve general communication?
Yeah. So I think our words are one of the number one things that leads to respect. Respect cannot be pushed upon a person. I
Mhm,
think that's kind of where in parenting we get it wrong, because we have this mentality that you have to respect me because I'm your parent,
mhm,
which as a foundation, like on a generic level, sure, have some respect because I'm your parent. But
mhm, right.
um, but that actual respect, where you actually feel respect for another human being, that is not something that you can push on someone. Um,
Mhm,
that is not it. Again, I think that that's really, when we talk about respect in parenting, a lot of times we're talking about where a lot of times when a child or a parent will say, my child respects me, I kind of see that as fear.
mhm,
My child respects me. Does your child respect you, or does your child fear you?
mhm,
Because like being totally obedient and um, being a yes man to your parents does not mean that you respect them. It means
mhm,
that you're afraid of what happens if you are not that. And
mhm,
so they're two different things. And so I find that the thing that really um, brings actual respect in a family and then beyond family is connection. It's
mhm,
relationship. It's, how much do you um how much do you or how, for parents, like how much parenting do they do to, you know demand certain behaviors or obedience versus how is their parenting building connection. We often say in our home that we connect before we correct. We don't go out just barking orders and saying your behavior's bad, stop it now. It's, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? What's going on? Because so many times that those behaviors are because of something else. There's something going on. A child is, hungry or or we can take this example out into the world where we're getting annoyed by someone's terrible driving.
Right.
they're being an idiot. But really that person is struggling with something, they're not paying very much attention because they're going through something. And so, when we take the time to not just look at behavior and go, oh, that person or my child is totally off base here and I need to, put my foot down. Instead, if we take the time to go, what's going on here? What do you need? I'm here for you. Then it just makes such a huge difference. There was a time when one of my daughters she was like 5, I think. And she was outside playing with her siblings and she started hitting the car with a stick. And she's screaming her head off, hitting the car. And I'm like, what is going on? Why are you so mad? Nobody knows what's wrong. So I take her hand and I walk her inside and take her over to our time in spot, which is the opposite of time out. It's like where we can go. It's, full of cuddle, like blankets and pillows and picture books and just a place where we can connect, right? When a child is in need of getting away from something else and they need that connection time to calm down without saying calm down.
Right.
And so we go over to the time in
That's a
spot.
concept I've never heard of.
Oh, awesome. And we're cuddling and, she's starting to slowly settle down. And I say, well, I don't understand why you're so mad. What's going on? So we had this connection. I didn't just say, stop doing this, you go to your room. I didn't do that. We had this place of connection. And so she's starting to feel comfortable and I'm trying to talk to her. What's going on, honey? Why are you angry? And she's not talking. She's still like, she's sniffling. So I give her paper and crayon. And I'm like, why don't you draw a picture of why you feel so mad? What's going on? And so she starts drawing and she gives me the picture back. And in one corner is a bunch of faces. They're obviously her siblings because she had been outside with her siblings. And the other corner is a little face, a girl face. It's hers. And it had tears rolling down the face. And I realized she wasn't mad. She was sad. And with questioning her about it, that she was feeling left out. Her siblings were playing something and she felt left out and she was feeling sad. And that her sadness came out as anger. And so she started hitting the car. But I never would have understood this about her. I never would have known that those angry outbursts were sadness. I never would have known that. And I never would have, been able to really help her through those big feelings and emotions in those moments if I hadn't just taken that time to connect with her and really learn what was going on. If I had just sent her to her room or told her to stop it and calm down and you're in trouble for hitting the car, I never would have learned this about her, and we never would have worked through that together. And so connection is so important. And I think that place of connection is what breeds respect in relationship. Because when you connect with a person and you can be transparent with a person and you can be humble, then you can, then you naturally grow to respect that person.
You raise such great points, and those are great tools to apply. Question. One thing you said was, I wouldn't have known this if I didn't take the time to sit down. Time is the biggest challenge for parents.
Yeah.
Parents have little time. Children have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to the parent in the moment that is just they're feeling their own, hunger, angry, loneliness, tiredness, all the things that they should stop and halt, but they're like in that moment. How does that adult, in your opinion, take the time out that maybe they can't work on it in the moment, but maybe it's going to have to be an after conversation? What would you advise there, Amy?
Yeah. Well, one thing you said about the parent itself um, is that they are feeling the hunger, they are feeling this, they are feeling that, and that is it's so important to recognize that, because I always say, like, parenting is 90% about the parent. It has nothing to do with the child. And so we need to work on ourselves. We need
Mhm,
to figure out what our triggers are. We need to understand how we react to certain things, and make an effort to heal certain things, because
mhm,
that has everything to do with how we are going to respond to our children. And
mhm,
so obviously that's not an in the moment thing. We can't
mhm,
go, okay, well, this is triggering me, so let me take some time to find some healing. But that is an all the time thing. That is
mhm,
take inventory of yourself,
mhm,
understand who you are and how you respond to things, and do what you need to do to start working towards healing in those areas, because that will definitely impact how you respond and how you parent.
mhm,
And then beyond that, in the moment, I mean, there are definite moments when we don't have the time
mhm,
to take our child to a time in spot and sit down and have those moments with them. And sometimes we just need to put our foot down and be like, this is not okay. We have to stop. And we don't have um, the time to truly connect before we
mhm,
correct. And so in those times, it's more about what we say. It's about those little phrases. It's about the tone. Sometimes we just have to remove our child from the situation and take them away. But
mhm,
how are we, if we were somewhere else with other people and my daughter started hitting the car and I have no time in spot and I'm not able to, I'm in the middle of something, so I'm not able to sit with her, I'm still going to pick her up lovingly. I'm still going to
mhm,
walk her away. I'm still going to whisper in her ear, oh honey, I'm sorry you're having this hard time. We
mhm,
can't hit the car. This isn't the way to do this. If there's something I can do for you, let me know. But we really need to stop this right now. And so we can take the overall idea of connection and words like honey, and we can minimize them into a moment. And it may not be as beautiful and healing as when we are able to take the time, but it does allow us to remove our child from the situation and address
mhm,
the situation um, you know without those big sometimes
mhm,
hurtful like
mhm.
moments.
Or
And
or the adding gasoline to the already exploding
yeah,
fire. You use
exactly.
an interesting phrase, Amy. You say, "We have to stop this right now."
Mm,
You didn't say, "You have to stop
yeah.
this right now."
Yeah, it's
Is
connection,
that
right? We're
relative?
together. I do think it is, yeah, because the child doesn't want to feel alone. The
Mhm,
child, it's always about connection. It's always
mhm,
about and as I said, we can't always take the big moments to make the big connections, but we can still connect in the little ways. And by saying we instead of you,
mhm,
we're connecting. We're saying I'm with you in this,
mhm,
and this is not how we can't do this at this time. We have to. we have to change our behavior, but it's both of us. It's us together. And that gives the child the understanding that they're not alone. And so often when a kid is acting up, they're feeling alone. I mean, they go into fight, flight, or freeze so much that we don't even understand that they're in it. And so much of a kid's like outburst is fight. That's what it is. They're in that fight space for whatever reason. And so little things that we say, such as we instead of you, can help to draw them out of that.
I read somewhere at some point, and I always thought it was a good thing to remember, is that when anyone is in screaming or anger, frustration mode, particularly a child, they have a problem and they don't know how to solve it.
Yeah.
So if you can step back, which is not always easy,
No.
I've had some epic mother moments.
Yeah, of course. We all have.
Epic mother moments. Thank goodness those kids couldn't film me when I was having them.
I know, right?
But it's really helpful to step back and say, okay, what's the problem here? They are not just screaming for no reason, and I simplify it sometimes in my head. I remember being a child and getting really upset in the shoe store. And, I was one of those little kids that I didn't want to have clothes on. I didn't like the feeling of clothes. So I was always complaining they were itchy. The shoes didn't fit, this or that. Well, once a year we were allowed to get shoes, and my mother's in the shoe store and they had just measured my foot and she's trying to shove this shoe on and I'm crying. Well, finally we realized there's the whole paper in the front of the shoe, which is why.
Yeah.
So there was a problem. I didn't know how to solve it. And my mother to this day, until the day she died, would laugh about that story. She's like, yeah, that was the day I realized maybe I should step back and take it.
Exactly.
But yeah, that stepping back and trying to recognize a problem and trying to communally come up with a solution, or at least listen, because often the kid has their own answers.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
What do you think about the phenomenon of people saying, oh, my child is my best friend?
So I think I think there needs to be a balance. I do think that it's important. I think it's important that our kids know that we're their friends. And I write about that in the book. I think that if we spend our kids' childhood telling them, you're not my friend, I'm your parent, then they're going to grow up with that realization of, oh, you're not my friend. And, what is a friend? A friend is someone you want to be around. A friend is someone you have fun with. A friend is someone you trust. A friend is someone you call when you are in need. A friend is someone you're honest with. I mean, that's what we want with our kids. We want them to feel that way about us and to know we feel that way about them. So if we spend our kids' childhood saying, I'm not your friend, then I feel like they will get to a point where suddenly we're not their authority anymore because now they're older, but also we're not their friend. And
I think there's an interesting line there, because I did grow up telling our kids, I am not your friend. I am your mother. And that's 10 times better.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly
as your mother, there's a lot of times it'll feel like I'm your friend, but I'm not going to be the one who tells you the idea is a good idea when it's a stupid idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's a bad idea that can hurt you. I'm going to draw that line and let you know that this is not your best choice. Whereas a friend might not do that. So
that is true. I don't call that a good friend.
You don't want me to be your friend. You want me to be your mother. That voice of reason. That has all the great things of a friend, but is a heck of a lot more watching out for you. Whereas a friend may be watching out for them.
Yeah. So that's
an important line to draw.
I do think that is a good line. And so that's kind of what kind of what I talk about, is that we can let our kids know we're their parent, which
Mm-hmm.
is, you know, which is the most amazing thing. And we are their friend. And it's the best of both worlds. But we also, the whole "you're my best friend," like, I think that can be damaging. I
That's
think
what I
that, like,
think.
yeah, I think that is, I think our kids should know we value them as friends, we value them as people, we value them as our children. But but we're not best friends, because
Mm-hmm.
we need other people in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We need those people we can turn to that are not, in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of everything, and those are our best friends. But that doesn't mean that I'm not your friend as your mom. And so I do think there needs to be a balance, and I think that you actually describe it beautifully in the way you describe a mother. And
Mm-hmm.
so that is really beautiful, and that's actually the same balance that I'm talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, um, using the word friend,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that our children, I think, would understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But best friend, they need to know that there are other people, and that we all need other people.
How, when you are saying words like honey, and these are things a parent ideally would try to apply to a child, do you have suggestions for a child for how they would best communicate back to the relationships they're in?
That's great. That's a great question. I think that a lot of times it's about observation. It's about,
Mhm,
what are we demonstrating to our kids? So when we offer our kids words like honey, and we think about the things that we say,
mhm,
and we're intentional with our wording, and with our tones to our kids, we're teaching them to do the same. We're teaching
mhm,
them to talk to other people in the same way. And I
mhm,
think that, we really value um, communication and conversation.
mhm,
We will ask questions instead of offer the answers, so that our
mhm,
kids can start thinking, and then offer the answers if they need, but give them the opportunity to think things through first, and come to the answer themselves.
mhm,
And another big thing we do is apologize. We say sorry, because we're
mm,
not perfect, and all of this is my caveat for everything that I wrote in that book, and I say it over and over again in there, is that I say these things. I'm not a perfect person. It's awareness. When we can be aware, we can do our best to make changes, but we're still going to say these things sometimes. And
mhm,
it's and so what do we do? How do we move forward in that? And that's we repair, we say sorry, we tell our kids. And this is, again, about that connection. We say, I didn't know, I'm sorry, like, I wasn't
mhm,
aware, I made a mistake. Whatever the case may be, we're open, we're transparent, and we apologize. And in doing so, not only are we helping with our kids to build that natural respect for us, but also we're teaching them to say sorry. We're teaching them to be honest and transparent, and to own their mistakes. And
What would you say the key characteristics of a good apology are?
I think the key characteristics are to just say sorry.
Mhm,
Not to rationalize, not to make excuses, not to say, I'm sorry, I was just, not to give that excuse
mhm.
for why you said what you said or did what you did, but just to say sorry. And if
Can
the
we talk about
conversation,
tone of voice with those
yeah,
sorries?
oh
Because tone of
yeah,
voice
absolutely.
is an important point,
It
because there are a
is.
lot of kids
Yeah,
that will
oh,
look at you and say, "I'm sorry."
right.
Or parents. It can go
Yeah.
both ways.
Yeah. And it's funny, because my son, he's 9, and he will say sorry like that every time. And I don't correct him. I just tell him I love him and forgive him. And then he always has that moment, probably like takes it a little time, and then a few minutes later, he comes back and says it without the tone.
Mhm.
So, he's trying to get that apology out, but he's still upset. And so I just let him say it and let him work through that in his own time. And then he comes and says it the right way. And so I think with apologies, our own or anyone else's, we just need to be open, transparent, not demanding. I think if I was sitting there saying to him, no, say it the right way. Nope, say it the right way. The apology would never be genuine. He would never come to that place of actually feeling sorry. So I just kind of let him work through it. And so I think that, tone matters. Tone means everything. Not rationalizing or making excuses means everything. And just a full, humble apology. I think it makes so much difference.
Well, I do think apologies are very fascinating because they vary
Mhm.
across the board in the way people approach them. Whereas you're saying, say
Yeah.
the word sorry. One of our children will, if has done something wrong, will take all the time in the world to reflect on it and come back
Mm.
with a long explanation about where it was coming
Yeah.
from, the feelings. The other one will never use the word sorry, but
Mm.
won't leave the house until, you know, that hug has come, or
Yeah.
it's like, "I need to,"
Absolutely.
"I'm leaving now. I'm leaving."
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think everybody has their own way of,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's funny because we end up having discussions about what and why.
Mhm.
Like as you said, your child, will have a long written um, apology. Those come. We do have those conversations. It's just in that initial apology, we
Mhm.
typically try to just say, I'm sorry. And then
Mhm.
usually we let the child, if we're the one apologizing, we let them lead. If they want to talk about it, then we talk about it. And if they don't,
Mhm.
then we don't.
Do you believe in that the apology should be accompanied by s specifically what you're apologizing for?
Um, if it needs it, like
Uh-huh.
if it's like what, maybe if it's something that happened previously, or
Mhm.
you're apologizing for something in the past,
Mhm.
absolutely. I think if it was, this in the moment, argument or whatever, and you just said
Just
that thing that
right.
you shouldn't have said, then a quick, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that,
Mhm.
is, sufficient.
Very interesting. What would be these interviews always go way too fast, and Amy, I feel like I could talk to you forever. You're a wealth of great information on communication in
Oh,
general,
thank you.
not just for parenting,
Yeah.
because a lot of the things we apply in parenting could apply to clients or in anything in any business situation as well, because it all gets down to people and how we
Yeah,
relate. What would
exactly.
be the biggest takeaway you would want a parent to think about in their parenting mode and communicating with a child?
Mhm. My biggest takeaway, I think, would just be to have a little grace on yourself.
Mhm,
I think that we we care so much about our kids, and we try so hard. And in this book, I offer so much information that I feel like could make a parent go, oh, my kids are older, I messed up,
mhm,
and what do I do now? And that is not in any way the message that I want to send. And that's why throughout the book, I am constantly, one, being totally humble about my mistakes,
uh-huh,
and two, saying it's never too late.
mhm,
Your kids could all be grown, and that apology can mean everything. I talk about how our kids, we don't even know what our adult kids have kind of taken into themselves, and their thoughts. They're thinking their dad stole something for their entire life, or whatever
mhm,
else. We don't know. And so just humbly going to them and saying, I'm sorry for what I didn't know when you were younger.
Mhm.
I'm sorry for maybe specific things or maybe general things. Just letting them know. I think that repairing is so important, and it can do wonders even for a relationship with
Mhm.
older adult children. And so my biggest takeaway is just understand that none of us are perfect. We're all human.
Mhm.
And as our kids get older, they understand that. They know that we're human. Are we going to continue to walk in that mindset that I don't want my kids to know I'm human and I err
Mhm.
and I make mistakes? Or are we going to humble ourselves and, they know you're human, right? So
Yeah.
just acknowledge it. Acknowledge it and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry. I
Mhm.
want to do better now. And so it's okay. It's okay to not be perfect. And it's okay to make those mistakes. And, repair is always possible.
That really is such good advice. I know the cathartic nature of the relationship, both with my mother, who I spent a lot of time with the last 2 years of her life, and our children. Just as you said, just saying, I'm just sorry for all the things I didn't understand, and I could give you 100 reasons why. I was busy. I didn't take the time. I could give you all those reasons, and they mean
Mhm.
nothing. I'm just genuinely wish I could have connected better in that moment, because
Yeah.
in retrospect, it's really what everyone feels. You just wish, geez, I wish I just could have been there in the moment, you know,
Mhm.
which is why I spend so much of my time in my writing, and the work I do is just give yourself, as you use the word, grace, or that breath, to try
Mhm.
to get into that moment, because it's where it's all happening.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's what you want to get back to, and the only regrets I think you have in life is if I just stopped for that second,
Mhm. Yeah.
which is tough with busy parents who are
It
working and
is.
trying to
It
get a zillion
is.
things done and have
Yeah.
multiple kids all making different demands. And we all know
Mhm.
everyone pops out with a different personality.
Yeah, absolutely. They do.
Well, oh my gosh, Amy, you are truly a very special woman. I
Oh, thank
enjoyed
you.
this conversation with you
Thank you. So
tremendously.
did I. Thank
I
you.
really have a lot of good takeaways, and I hope I can find them when I'm making clips of this episode, because you had so many good things to really remember as a parent, as a human being, as someone who wants to just learn to communicate better.
Oh,
So
thank you.
thank
I
you.
really appreciate it.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm Dian Griesel. This has been the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. I'm sitting in the lovely Manhattan Center recording this, and Amy is wherever she is, and in front of a beautiful field in the background, and we're having a delightful conversation. There's going to be links below, all kinds of links, especially so you can get a copy of Amy's book, because I think that would be a good present for yourself, maybe even for your older children, and definitely for any new parent or somebody who's starting on an adventure with children, because learning to communicate better is always good for all of us. So
Mhm.
thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
Okay, hit subscribe, everyone. See you soon. Amy, we're moving over to the green room. Thank you. Thanks.